Thinking about buying a vacation home in northern Michigan, you might be wondering, is the market as hot as it's been, or is it starting to cool off in 2025? Well, the truth is, vacation homes in northern Michigan are still in high demand. And I'm going to show you exactly why. From limited inventory to steady price growth, to the unbeatable lifestyle that makes northern Michigan one of the most desirable vacation home locations. And here's why this market continues to attract attention in 2025. Let's start with demand. Since the beginning of time, vacation homes in northern Michigan have been popular. But in 2025, we are seeing increased interest, especially in waterfront homes with limited supply. Inventory for vacation homes that are either on the water, have a water view, or in nice neighborhoods is as low as it's ever been. We're not seeing a flood of new listings. And when a home hits the market on Walloon or in Bay Harbor or on Lake Charlevoix or Burt Lake, it's often quickly gobbled up. In fact, as realtors, I'm often forced to find my buyers homes that are not actually already on the market. We do this through direct mail, talking to our friends and family, and even knocking on doors in the right situation. Oftentimes in the vacation home market, we see new listings come on the market because that person has bought either a bigger house or has downsized to a smaller house. Now we're dealing with a little bit of gridlock. People are just not moving around as much. This is due largely to costs going up and even interest rates. Now, while vacation homes in northern Michigan have always been popular, when you look at places like Harbor Springs, that is one of the most quintessential resort towns you'll ever find, to places like Petoskey, Boyne City, or Charlevoix, there has always been a strong demand for vacation homes in northern Michigan. However, in this market, we just do not have as much inventory as we once did. Not only is there the demand we had prior to COVID, but now with COVID shining such a bright spotlight on this area, it has ratcheted up the demand even higher. I've been selling real estate for about 22 years, and early in my career, it seemed like the people buying vacation homes in northern Michigan were typically from places like Cincinnati, Ohio, Chicago, Illinois, or even other places in Indiana. Now, buyers are flocking here from around the country and sometimes even around the world. It's not uncommon for me to get a call from a buyer in Seattle that is relocating to northern Michigan. 10, 15, 20 years ago, we just didn't draw as much demand from those faraway places. And I'm often asked why that is. And I think a couple of reasons. One, as I mentioned before, COVID shined such a bright light on this area that it opened people's eyes to northern Michigan that maybe weren't familiar with it from before. As I mentioned a minute ago, typically back in the day, our buyers came from other areas around the Midwest. Now when you're seeing people come from the West Coast, the Northeast, or even the Southeast, that is causing more demand with way less supply, which is creating a feeding frenzy for vacation homes. Now let's talk about price. Vacation homes in northern Michigan means something different to everyone. I've sold people multi-million-dollar vacation homes, and I've also sold people $200,000 vacation homes. That is one thing that is truly special and interesting about northern Michigan, is just how many different varieties of vacation homes we have here. Drop a comment below. If you are looking for a vacation home in northern Michigan, would you want a waterfront estate or a cabin in the woods? Over the last 5 or 6 years, a lot of property values in northern Michigan have doubled. That means the house that was once $250,000 is now close to $500,000. And the house that was once $500,000 is now close to $1 million. And that's tough for a lot of buyers to grasp. That also creates another interesting problem where people who have watched the northern Michigan real estate market think the prices are out of control and are far too high, mixed with people who are just learning about northern Michigan who may be comparing it to other coastal towns that still think northern Michigan is a bargain. I was at a dinner party about a year ago, and I sat next to a couple that moved here from Texas. Now, prior to buying in Bay Harbor, they were considering moving to Newport Beach, California, which, if you're familiar, is a very expensive area. They were looking at houses priced anywhere from $8 to $10 million. They stumbled upon Bay Harbor while looking around on Zillow and were able to buy a house for $2 million, which to a lot of people sounds like a lot of money, but when you're comparing it to spending $8 to $10 million, it was a bargain to these buyers. And that's just an example of what we're dealing with with the 2025 real estate market. And depending on what you want, there truly is something in Northern Michigan for every budget. If you're looking for a waterfront estate directly on the water, and you have a $3, $4, $5 million budget, you're gonna love places like Harbor Springs, Bay Harbor, Walden Lake, or Lake Charlevoix. And if you're looking to spend $1 million or $2 million on a waterfront home in Northern Michigan, we've got places like Crooked Lake, Burt Lake, or Mullet Lake, which are all located on the Inland Waterway, which in my opinion is one of the best boating experiences you're gonna find anywhere. The good news with a steady price increase in Northern Michigan is that if you were to buy a house here, you can rely on it to be a stable investment that stands the test of time. Now that we've talked about price, let's talk about a couple of other reasons that people decide to buy vacation homes in Northern Michigan. Believe it or not, while price is a leading factor for a lot of people when they're buying real estate, no matter whether it's a primary residence or a second home, vacation home buyers in Northern Michigan are not driven purely by price. What I mean by that is nobody wants to pay more than they have to, but people are buying more than just a house when they buy a vacation home in Northern Michigan. Sometimes they're buying an investment, sometimes they're buying a place for their family together, and sometimes they're buying their legacy, meaning they're going to buy an estate that may stay in their family for generation after generation. There are so many houses in Northern Michigan that have never been for sale, that have never been on the market, and have been in the same family for decades. And again, while price is important and nobody wants to spend more than they have to, you can't put a price tag on kids or grandkids jumping off the dock, sitting on the deck and watching the sunset every night, or just enjoying the Northern Michigan lifestyle. And something else that I think is interesting to note is when you're talking about a region such as Northern Michigan that is compiled with people who chose to live here, meaning they weren't drawn here by a job or forced to live here for some other reason. They made the effort and the decision to move to Northern Michigan. And I think that creates something very special. The lasting emotional value is the reason that vacation homes in Northern Michigan will continue to be one of the most sought after sectors of real estate in the entire country. So if you're watching this and wondering, how do I determine what area is right for me? I think it's key to ask yourself a few questions to start. First and foremost, what is important to you? Is finding the right house on the right street in the right community important? Or are you a little bit more budget driven and want to get the most bang for your buck with your vacation home in Northern Michigan? And either one of those questions are a great starting point when starting your journey to find your vacation home in Northern Michigan. From there, determine the lifestyle you want. Are you going to be here in the summer? Are you going to be in the summer and part of the winters? Are you going to spend the holidays here? And really work backwards. Start with the end in mind. What do you want your Northern Michigan vacation lifestyle to look like? And how do we find a house that fits within that? If you want to be close to the action and close to the downtown areas, you're going to love places like Petoskey, Harbor Springs, Charlevoix, or Boyne City. If you want to be out in the country and away from things, places like Gaylord, Wolverine, or Boyne Falls may suit your fancy a little bit better. So not only are vacation homes in Northern Michigan in high demand because of the limited inventory, it's about much more. It's about legacy. It's about the feeling you get every day when you walk into your house or when you drive up from downstate or get off your plane from across the country. So if you're a buyer that wants to step into this competitive market, feel free to reach out to me directly at 231-487-6141. Right now, I'm helping families every single day find their perfect slice of Northern Michigan, and I'm confident I can do the same for you. If after watching this video, you'd like to learn more about Northern Michigan or Northern Michigan real estate, please subscribe to this channel. I make new videos every week, and I would hate for you to miss one. See you on the next video.